part 3 of Plato's Apology runs from margin number 28b to 31c and is about 1,600 words long. In it, Socrates does 5 things. First, he explains to the jury why he is not ashamed of his actions, comparing himself to Achilles. Second, he compares his present situation in court to his time serving as a hoplite in the Athenian infantry during the Peloponnesian War. Third, he rejects the possibility of a conditional acquittal, in which he would be given his freedom if he agreed to stop his philosophical questioning. Fourth, he reminds the jury that, according to his earlier story of the oracle, his philosophizing in Athens is commanded by the god Apollo himself. Lastly, he tells the jury that his philosophical questioning benefits the city and that killing him will harm Athens. In the next part of the video, I will give you the text of part 3 with my notes on the screen. At the end of the video, I will offer some discussion questions. Here we go.
Someone will say, "Are you not ashamed, Socrates, of a course of life which is likely to bring you to an untimely end?" To him I may fairly answer, "There you are mistaken. A man who is good for anything ought not to calculate the chance of living or dying. He ought only to consider whether in doing anything he is doing right or wrong, acting the part of a good man or of a bad." Whereas, according to your view, the heroes who fell at Troy were not good for much, and Achilles the son of Thetis above all, who altogether despised danger in comparison with disgrace. And when his goddess mother said to him in his eagerness to slay Hector, that if he avenged his companion Patroclus and slew Hector, he would die himself. Fate, as she said, waits upon you next after Hector. He, hearing this, utterly despised danger and death, and instead of fearing them, feared rather to live in dishonor and not to avenge his friend. "Let me die next," he replies, "and be avenged of my enemy, rather than abide here by the beaked ships, a scorn and a burden on the earth." Had Achilles any thought of death and danger? For wherever a man's place is, whether the place which he has chosen or that in which he has been placed by a commander, there ought he to remain in the hour of danger. He should not think of death or of anything but of disgrace, and this, O men of Athens, is a true saying. Strange indeed would be my conduct, O men of Athens, if I, who, when I was ordered by the generals whom you chose to command me, at Potidaea, at Amphipolis, and Delium, remained where they placed me, like any other man, facing death, if, I say now, when I conceive and imagine, God orders me to fulfill the philosopher's mission of searching into myself and other men, I were to desert my post through fear of death, or any other fear, that would indeed be strange, and I might justly be arraigned in court for denying the existence of the gods. If I disobeyed the oracle because I was afraid of death, then I should be fancying that I was wise when I was not wise. For this fear of death is indeed the pretense of wisdom, and not real wisdom, being the appearance of knowing the unknown, since no one knows whether death, which they in their fear apprehend to be the greatest evil, may not be the greatest good. Is there not here the conceit of knowledge, which is a disgraceful sort of ignorance? And this is the point in which, as I think, I am superior to men in general, and in which I might perhaps fancy myself wiser than other men. That whereas I know but little of the world below, I do not suppose that I know. But I do know that injustice and disobedience to a better, whether God or man, is evil and dishonorable, and I will never fear to avoid a possible good rather than a certain evil. And therefore, if you let me go now, and reject the counsels of Anytus, who said that if I were not put to death I ought not to have been prosecuted, and that if I escape now, your sons will all be utterly ruined by listening to my words. If you say to me, "Socrates, this time we will not mind Anytus, and will let you off, but upon one condition, that you are not to inquire and speculate in this way any more, and that if you are caught doing this again you shall die," if this was the condition on which you let me go, I should reply, "Men of Athens, I honor and love you, but I shall obey God rather than you, and while I have life and strength, I shall never cease from the practice and teaching of philosophy, exhorting anyone whom I meet after my manner, and convincing him, saying, "O my friend, why do you, who are a citizen of the great and mighty and wise city of Athens, care so much about laying up the greatest amount of money and honor and reputation, and so little about wisdom and truth and the greatest improvement of the soul, which you never regard or heed at all? Are you not ashamed of this?" And if the person with whom I am arguing says, "Yes, but I do care," I do not depart or let him go at once. I interrogate and examine and cross-examine him. And if I think that he has no virtue, but only says that he has, I reproach him with undervaluing the greater and overvaluing the less. And this I should say to everyone whom I meet, young and old, citizen and alien, but especially to the citizens, inasmuch as they are my brethren. For this is the command of God, as I would have you know, and I believe that to this day no greater good has ever happened in the state than my service to the God. For I do nothing but go about persuading you all, old and young alike, not to take thought for your persons or your properties, but first and chiefly to care about the greatest improvement of the soul. I tell you that virtue is not given by money, but that from virtue come money and every other good of man, public as well as private. This is my teaching, and if this is the doctrine which corrupts the youth, my influence is ruinous indeed. But if anyone says that this is not my teaching, he is speaking an untruth. Wherefore, O men of Athens, I say to you, do as Anytus bids, or not as Anytus bids, and either acquit me or not. But whatever you do, know that I shall never alter my ways, not even if I have to die many times. Men of Athens, do not interrupt, but hear me. There was an agreement between us that you should hear me out, and I think that what I am going to say will do you good, for I have something more to say, at which you may be inclined to cry out, but I beg that you will not do this. I would have you know that if you kill such a one as I am, you will injure yourselves more than you will injure me. Meletus and Anytus will not injure me, they cannot, for it is not in the nature of things that a bad man should injure a better than himself. I do not deny that he may, perhaps, kill him, or drive him into exile, or deprive him of civil rights, and he may imagine, and others may imagine, that he is doing him a great injury, but in that I do not agree with him. For the evil of doing as Anytus is doing, of unjustly taking away another man's life, is greater far. And now, Athenians, I am not going to argue for my own sake, as you may think, but for yours, that you may not sin against the God, or lightly reject his boon by condemning me. For if you kill me, you will not easily find another like me, who, if I may use such a ludicrous figure of speech, am a sort of gadfly, given to the state by the god, and the state is like a great and noble steed, who is tardy in his motions owing to his very size, and requires to be stirred into life. I am that gadfly which God has given the state, and all day long and in all places am always fastening upon you, arousing and persuading and reproaching you. And as you will not easily find another like me, I would advise you to spare me. I dare say that you may feel irritated at being suddenly awakened when you are caught napping, and you may think that if you were to strike me dead as Anytus advises, which you easily might, then you would sleep for the remainder of your lives, unless God, in his care of you, gives you another gadfly. And that I am given to you by God is proved by this, that if I had been like other men, I should not have neglected all my own concerns, or patiently seen the neglect of them during all these years, and have been doing yours, coming to you individually like a father or elder brother, exhorting you to virtue. This, as I say, would not be like human nature. And had I gained anything, or if my exhortations had been paid, there would have been some sense in that. But now, as you will perceive, not even the impudence of my accusers dares to say that I have ever exacted or sought pay of anyone. They have no witnesses to that, and I have a witness to the truth of what I say. My poverty is a sufficient witness.
Now, here are my discussion questions for Part 3 of Plato's Apology. First, someone on the jury might think Socrates is being arrogant or insolent in defending himself as he does. Instead, Socrates suggests that he is being courageous, like Achilles was at Troy, or like he, Socrates, was at the Battle of Potidaea. Make a list of specific things Socrates has said so far that might be called arrogant. Then make another list of ways his defense might be seen as courageous. Which is the better characterization? Second, brainstorm some specific ways that having a questioner like Socrates in your city might benefit the individual citizens and the city as a whole. How would a city that included one or two gadfly philosophers be better off than a city that included none? Those are my discussion questions for part 3 of Plato's Apology. Thanks for watching today. Goodbye.